Coming up today on the Nick Craig Show, one of the co-founders of Wikipedia has been banned from his own website. Of course, it has to do with politics on the internet. We'll get into all the details coming up. And a good Friday morning to you. Welcome into the Nick Craig Show, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. Don't forget that you can take the show with you 24/7 on demand. It's completely free and real simple to do. Search for the Nick Craig Show in your favorite podcast app or visit the website nickcraig.com. Our show this morning brought to you by the Law Group here in Wilmington. For any legal questions or challenges, lawgroupnc.com. We'll hear more from them coming up a little bit later on in the program this morning. We'll get into we got a lot to get into. It's been a busy week across the nation here. A lot of news that we've covered on the program this week. I'm also filling in once again today for Brett Winterbull on WBT Radio. Thanks to so many of you who joined me yesterday. I'll be live again 3 to 6 p.m. today. That'll be coming up WBT Radio 107.9 FM in Charlotte. I'm also in for that same slot Monday and Tuesday of next week. So hopefully you can join me for that. We've all heard of the website Wikipedia. It is a very common resource on the internet. You have used it probably hundreds, if not thousands of times to look up a variety of different pieces of information, things that are going on now, things that have gone on in the past. It is a phenomenal resource for learning, and it is a phenomenal resource for digging into details. Now, one of the things that makes Wikipedia such an interesting website is the fact that it is user-edited. Anybody can log in to Wikipedia, or you can even do it anonymously, and make changes to the website, make changes to the various Wikipedia pages that exist. If you have information on something, if you're the source of some piece of information, you can go on there, cite your source, cite your information, and make your change. That is why Wikipedia in the academic field is something that is not seen as a reliable source of information, even though a lot of the information on there is very accurate and has been very accurate for quite some time. I stumbled across a very interesting article over at the Washington Examiner this week with this headline. It's written by an individual by the name of Larry Sanger. And here's the headline. I co-founded Wikipedia, but an anonymous mob runs the show, and now I'm banned. Written by Larry Sanger, who is in fact one of the co-founders of Wikipedia. He, alongside his partner in crime at the time, back in the early 2000s, an individual by the name of Jimmy Wales, co-founded Wikipedia. Sanger was the one that actually came up with the name Wikipedia, the one that had the concept for the name that is now synonymous with a lot of information all throughout the internet. And because of so many problems that continue to exist on the World Wide Web, the co-founder of the website is now banned from making changes on his own platform. And we're going to get into some of his piece over at the Washington Examiner. He appeared on Fox Business this week as well. I'll have that clip coming up for you. But this is a larger, and should be, I think, a larger discussion over the current state of the internet as a whole. Outside of X, which of course is the social media platform purchased a couple of years ago by Elon Musk, the shackles taken off of that platform, truly allowing individuals to speak their mind, truly allowing individuals to post on that platform, noting that not all of the information is great, noting that not everybody is the nicest individual in the world. Sometimes people say mean and terrible things. So be it. It is a social media platform that individuals are, and in the past, were allowed to express their opinions. But over more recent times, over the last couple of years, we have continued to see on a variety of these major social media platforms full-blown censorship, where individuals that have certain opinions, certain thoughts, certain ideals are shut out. This was a very prominent story if you'll go back to the 2020 presidential election, when the New York Post, who breaks a lot of news. Now, you can claim, the New York Post is a tabloid outlet, and Page Six, their other thing, it's just nothing more than media filth. That's all fine and dandy. Say what you want about the New York Post. They have consistently built a track record of breaking huge stories. They broke a story in October of 2020, in the weeks leading up to the presidential election between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, that Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, used his father's influence to enrich himself and the rest of his family, while Joe Biden was a sitting U.S. senator and the vice president of the United States under Barack Obama. There were emails that were recovered, documents that were recovered from a laptop that Hunter Biden, I'm sure in one of his drug-filled crazes, left at a computer repair shop. The New York Post was able to get a copy of that and laid out some of the details in which Hunter Biden was essentially buying influence using his father's position, getting large oil consulting jobs over in Ukraine, enriching himself at the tune of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. This was broken by the New York Post. That story was fundamentally censored on social media. Facebook at the time, Twitter, and all of these other major social media platforms buried that story. An article from, again, a well-known, reputable news site. The New York Post is not some fly-by-night operation. That's not to say they don't get anything wrong, but it's not some random Substack that had just popped up. The New York Post is a legitimate news organization. You can argue with how they frame things. You can argue with how they report some things. They're a legitimate news outlet. Everybody is familiar with what the New York Post is. It's not some fly-by-night operation. They break this story. It's obviously very damning to Joe Biden and the campaign just weeks ahead of the November general election. And lo and behold, social media, these major tech platforms, Facebook, Instagram at the time, Twitter, decided that because that content was too damning, because that content did not paint the Democrat Party, did not paint Joe Biden in a good light, and could have potentially cost him the 2020 presidential election, what did they do? They deleted the comments. They blocked and stifled the sharing of that article from the New York Post's website. That was one of the first examples, and there's been plenty of more. There was plenty before that. There's been plenty after that. I think that was one of the big first examples that where a lot of individuals that don't permanently live online, that don't spend a lot of time on social media, started asking themselves, what's going on here? You've got what we know, a completely verified, confirmed story from the New York Post that was censored online. A story that painted Joe Biden and his son Hunter, the loser that he is, in a bad light. And because it was damaging politically to many of the individuals that control these major tech platforms, they decided that content shouldn't be allowed to be shared, that content should not be allowed to propagate throughout their platforms. There is no other word to describe that than censorship. Those stories, those articles, that reporting was censored from these major social media platforms. And I think a lot of folks' eyes were opened in the months and years after the fact, when everybody else said, oh yeah, this is a verified story. Oh, yeah, this is 100% true. Meanwhile, voters leading up to the November 2020 presidential election didn't have access to that information unless they were sent it in some other platform. If you were posting the New York Post article on your Twitter feed or on your Facebook account during that period of time, it was not getting any interaction. It was not being seen by your friends on Facebook or your followers on Twitter because it was being censored by those platforms. This has become a major growing concern with social media. Fortunately, with Elon Musk's purchase of X back a couple of years ago, or Twitter a couple of years ago, now known as X, we are starting to see the tide change on that. Individuals are allowed to share their thoughts. Individuals are allowed to post content, share news stories without the risk of censorship, without the risk of being shadow banned or deleted or purged from the platform. And this is a conversation that is not going anywhere anytime soon. Mass censorship on social media platforms. It's not. It's going to stay here. It's going to stay here for a significant period of time. We are talking about online, internet, social media censorship as it relates to an article that ran this week over at the Washington Examiner, written by Larry Sanger, who is one of the two co-founders. He, alongside Jimmy Wales, co-founded the very prominent, very popular website Wikipedia. Here's the headline: I co-founded Wikipedia, but an anonymous mob runs the show, and now I'm banned. Let's read through a little bit of this article from Larry Sanger, kind of describing the situation unfolding here. He writes in part in the article, I have been permanently blocked from editing Wikipedia, the website I named and led in 2001. Yes, really. I can hear you thinking, how? What's going on over there? The incident reveals something truly damning about the encyclopedia that anybody can edit. The irony is not even a co-founder can edit it if he's attempting to implement his program for reform. He goes on to write, the bizarre event has captured the attention of the global internet, which has been surprised to learn that a relatively small clique of anonymous administrators apparently wield such irresponsible authority that a founder of the site could be abused for 3 days and then banned, as so many thousands had been before. It's true that there is an anonymous mob with practically unlimited power on the platform, but this is only one dimension of Wikipedia's problems. Let me explain. Ask the true believers and they'll share that the site's institutional fictions. It's neutral. It's written by well-meaning volunteers. It's an encyclopedia anybody can edit. Blocking accounts is done by a rational process, usually by the book, and no admin would ever stoop to accepting money for wielding their institutional clout. It's true that Wikipedia is written by volunteers, but what sort of volunteers, asks Larry Sanger. Even the vast majority of the site's most influential players are entirely anonymous. As a result, our insight into Wikipedia's power dynamics is limited. It is not the case, as it turns out, that just anybody can edit it. Anybody can try, but as in many cases, powerful administrators routinely gang up on people who don't fall in line, making and approving blocks that have no substantial justification. Often the blocked accounts receive the same vague unapproval accusation I did, quote, not here to build the encyclopedia. What does this mean? In my case, admins said it was a failure to edit quite enough of the article, but that, of course, is hardly a bannable offense. Rather, it was about whether I am on board with the spirit, the propagandist bend of the encyclopedia. He goes on to say, if it's not just a peaceful collaboration among equals, how is power really exercised on Wikipedia? In place of a strict constitution, there are 5 pillars: policies, guidelines, and commentary essays. But no one is held rigorously to community charter. Rather, editors and admins are strictly responsible only to each other, and above all to a small group of intimidating leaders, usually admins, who declare with stern confidence how vague rules are to be interpreted. They get their authority from the community, but the community is in fact a mob. By calling it a mob or a blob, I do not mean to suggest that there is no center of power. In fact, Wikipedia is ruled by a few hundred anonymous demagogues who dominate the rest. They go by random handles. It is a dictatorship of the twee. but they wield their power through the vague rules, vague threats, and vague alliances. We are going through some of the details in this article written by Larry Sanger, who is the co-founder of Wikipedia, describing how a group of individuals, in large part ideological folks on the political left, have taken over Wikipedia. And it's not a story just unique to Wikipedia. Now, obviously, that platform is very unique in the way that it operates. As I mentioned at the beginning, if you've never used Wikipedia before, you can go in there, and if you've got accurate information, or what you believe to be accurate information, you can log on to Wikipedia and even anonymously make changes to articles that exist. I've done that in the past. I know many other people have done that in the past as well. And the concern, the seemingly growing here from one of the Wikipedia co-founders, is that you've got a relatively small group of individuals that have grown to a period where they are wielding an insane amount of power within the platform, where they are denying edit requests, where they are blocking accounts from making changes in many cases that are wholly accurate, right? It's not like they're blocking accounts that are just making fictitious, false changes and trolling on the platform. They are going in there and attempting to make legitimate changes to articles or to topics that they have information on, and the moderators, the anonymous admins, the keyboard warriors on that platform have said enough is enough, even to the point where Larry Sanger, the individual whose article we're reading over at the Washington Examiner, has been banned from his own platform. His account has been banned from Wikipedia. He and his buddy, back in 2001, Jimmy Wales, founded Wikipedia. Larry Sanger is the guy who came up with the name, and he is now banned from his own platform. He goes on to say in the article, maybe the alliances aren't clear to insiders. The leaders of the mob work a lot. Some of them probably are paid by someone. Who knows? Maybe different groups are working for different paymasters. We do know the special interest Wikipedia editor group exists offline, such as so-called guerrilla skeptics. It is an open secret that they operate a back-channel discussion group. Similarly, as journalist Ashley Ridensburg has shown, editing patterns revealed a gang of 40 accounts that together dominate articles about the Israel-Palestinian conflict, with definite signs of off-Wikipedia coordination. There sure are a lot of people who call themselves anti-fascists on Wikipedia. Probably activists funding pays some of them to edit. But since they're anonymous, how could we tell? In any event, we do know that the Wikipedia Foundation directly funds a number of nonprofit organizations that edit articles of keen interests to progressives. Just for example, one group is called Whose Knowledge, which runs edit-a-thons engaged in centering the plurality of dictatorial feminist practices. I'm not even going to try to begin to understand what that can mean. This is a major problem moving forward. It's not something new. Larry Sanger has been very critical now, going back the earliest I could find, about 15 years, in being highly critical of some of the practices that are ongoing at the website that he founded, known as Wikipedia. We'll get into more of his commentary from the Washington Examiner. Plus, he appeared on Fox Business this week as well. We'll play parts of that interview as well as the Nick Craig Show continues. But before that, I want to tell you about the Law Group here in Wilmington and thank them for their continued support of the Nick Craig Show, reminding you that when legal challenges arise, make sure you put your trust in the Law Group. Since 2003, their experienced attorneys have provided high-quality, affordable legal services across Eastern North Carolina. Whether you're facing a divorce, navigating a real estate transaction, or maybe you're in a position where you need a strong defense, no matter the issue, the Law Group has your back. Their dedicated team ensures your questions are answered and issues are resolved as quickly as possible. Great news, folks. They're located in downtown Wilmington and just a phone call away at 910-251-6088, or you can visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. That's 910-251-6088. or online, lawgroupnc.com. It's the Law Group. Experience and dedication you can rely on. We appreciate Melissa Gott and her team's continued support, financial support here of the Nick Craig Show. We'll grab a quick break. We'll continue down this path, down this road, and some information from Larry Sanger about Wikipedia coming up after this, as the Nick Craig Show continues on this Friday morning, streaming live 7 a.m., YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, and available 24/7 wherever you get your podcasts. And a good Friday to you. Welcome back to the Nick Craig Show. Thanks for spending some time here. It has been a very busy news week across the state of North Carolina and the nation. Rounding it out here on a Friday, we're talking about Wikipedia, a story I caught over at the Washington Examiner this week, an op-ed by an individual who goes by Larry Sanger. He is one of the co-founders alongside his partner, Jimmy Wales. They founded the very prominent, very popular internet website Wikipedia back in 2001. And Larry Sanger pens this op-ed highlighting some major concerns that he sees with the platform moving forward, talking about how a relatively small group of moderators that he believes are being paid by left-wing activist groups have essentially dominated and taken over the platform, even to the point where the co-founder of the website in Larry Sanger has been banned from his own website. His account was suspended for 3 days, and then he was banned for making changes to articles on the website. And he's documenting and highlighting, is specifically talking about a group of individuals called the Gang of 40, which is about 40 accounts that have dominated a whole litany of Wikipedia articles about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And he is saying that it appears obvious to him, and he says in his article, probably activist funding for these moderators, for these individuals to change the course of history. Because, of course, Wikipedia has become such a prominent resource for so many individuals that if you can control what is on that website, if you can control what is being talked about and what the quote-unquote news actually is, well, then you are the one that is defining truth. And this is not new for Larry Sanger. Going back to, even the early 2000s, just years after the founding of Wikipedia, he started kind of sounding the alarm on some of these issues. The first time he really kind of got into some more of the political side of this was back in 2010. He continued, and in 2020, in a blog post, he described Wikipedia as, quote, badly biased, and said it is favoring left-wing and liberal politics. He wrote in his blog, in my opinion, portions of Donald Trump's Wikipedia articles are unrelentingly negative, while Barack Obama's article completely fails to mention many well-known scandals. He listed other topics he argued are presented with a far left-wing or liberal bias, including pages on Hillary Clinton, abortion, drug legalization, religion, LGBTQ adoption, and other topics on the website, highlighting these major issues. And the thing that I have always appreciated about Wikipedia, and will admit I don't use it for a lot of political stuff. I use it for some other hobby stuff, technology, radio, things of that nature, is that you truly get a whole picture of what's going on, or at least you try, or you believe that you're getting that whole picture. But once it becomes obvious and evident that that is not happening, once it becomes clear that that is no longer what this platform stands for, it starts to lose all of its credibility. So he goes on to say in his a piece over at the Washington Examiner this week, indeed, it is uncontroversial that some money pays for Wikipedia's work. Wikipedians, I guess that's the name for the people that are on the website, admit it and ridding their hands over paying editors, wagging their finger at PR firms like WikiPR. But how many powerful editors and admins are paid for their work? I wonder. Individual admins deny that paid editing is a serious problem in their ranks, but how could we know? The powerful take an interest in Wikipedia almost 20 years ago, noting one individual who showed that Langley, Virginia's computers, tied to the CIA's IP addresses, had edited the encyclopedia. Former Wikimedia CEO Catherine Mayer, who went on to run Yahoo, boasted at a 2021 Atlantic Council panel that Wikipedia, quote, had taken an active approach in disinformation on the site, though conversations with government, of course, as well as other platform operators. During the COVID-19 pandemic and the 2020 election, this January, the Bureau of Investigative Journalism reported that London PR firm Portland Communications had been rewriting Wikipedia for governments and billionaires. The firm's clients included the state of Qatar, the Gates Foundation, that's Bill Gates, Bill and Melinda Gates, the Libya Sovereignty Wealth Fund, and others. Separately, the investigative journalism outlet found that an anonymous editor was paid to downplay British cabinet minister Peter Mandelson's ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Here, then, is the ugly picture that emerges. Wikipedia is not dedicated to a lovely, idealistic project staffed by students, scholars, and retirees who just want to share their knowledge to benefit the world. To be sure, there are people involved for whom this is true, but the site has manifestly been captured by a small clique of ideologically motivated bullies. They manipulate and intimidate other participants, and anyone who does not fall in line, like me, is banned. They wield a lot of power in a pretty vicious way. Money clearly does change hands, and in some cases, it resembles a shakedown. Considering the size of WikiPR and the like, it may be millions of dollars per year. Wikipedia is one of the most powerful media platforms in history, and it is past time we learned who really controls it. It is signed Larry Sanger, is the co-founder of Wikipedia. His 9 thesis about Wikipedia can be found at his website, larrysanger.org. This is a very concerning article. It's a very concerning op-ed from Larry Sanger, highlighting the concerns going on in this platform. And as I noted at the open, this is just an extension of what we see in so many other corners of the internet. I mean, the website Reddit, which I used to use very frequently, is a total liberal cesspool. You can't go to any prominent subreddit without seeing some level of liberal leftist ideology being shoved in your face. The R News subreddit is solely a left-wing propaganda outlet. And if you look at the comments on a site like Reddit, which users get to determine what kind of content floods to the top and what comments and content doesn't, all of the comments are tried and true left-wing socialist Marxist communists. That's every single comment. Wishing for the death of their political opponents, joking about, I remember I saw an article right around the July the 4th UFC event where there are now multiple individuals who have been indicted on trying to assassinate or severely hurt President Donald Trump during that event. And liberals on Reddit, the entirety of the news subreddit in the article that I read there in the comments, were happy about this. They were joking about how it's unfortunate that the plot was foiled, how it was unfortunate that the individuals who are now being indicted by the federal government and hopefully who will rot in prison for the rest of their lives, how these individuals were just doing the right thing, and how these individuals, it was okay that they were doing this. This is what the internet has become in so many corners. It's not just people that have different political opinions. That's fine. I don't care if you have a different political opinion and you want to scream that from the rooftops, scream that from the mountaintops. Doesn't bother me at all. I think it's stupid. I think it's ridiculous, but you have the right to do so. It's not that's the issue. It is trending into complete and total disinformation, and in many cases, the wishing and willing on political violence. Of course, no surprise from the same political party that killed somebody like Charlie Kirk, the same political party that has tried to assassinate President Donald Trump multiple times. This would, of course, be the very peaceful individuals on the political left, those that are full of diversity, equity, and inclusion, those that feel that everybody should be welcomed, everybody should be included. But of course, unless you disagree with our politics, then we believe that you should be assassinated in broad daylight. That is the modern left-wing liberal Democrat Party. That is what they believe. That is what they expound consistently as their viewpoints. It's a very dangerous thing moving forward. And I would argue it's a pretty scary thing moving forward as well. We are rounding out the conversation, an op-ed in the Washington Examiner this week from Larry Sanger. He, one of the co-founders of Wikipedia, a website that we are all familiar with, highlighting how a relatively small group of individuals who he believes are being financially backed have essentially taken over the platform and have put themselves in positions where they are banning accounts, blocking people from making changes, and essentially ruling that platform with an iron fist. Surprise, surprise, these individuals have a very far left-wing political standpoint and political viewpoint. So Larry Sanger was on Fox Business this week, just a couple of days ago, talking a little bit more about this. Let's listen into a little bit of this interview.
Wikipedia has permanently blocked one of its founders, Larry Sanger, from editing pages. Wikipedia says they blocked him because, quote, he'd been canvassing an outside audience to sway internal policy votes, end quote. Now, we reached out for more information from Wikipedia as well, but we haven't heard back from them yet. Wikipedia Co-founder Larry Sanger joins me now. Larry, thank you very much for being here. So you heard what Wikipedia says. I imagine you have an issue with that. Tell us.
I do. All I was doing was trying to collect new participants for Wiki Project Intellectual Diversity. That's what it was called. And there's no rule against that in Wikipedia. In fact, there are no really clear rules, though. The rules are essentially whatever the people who bring a case against a person say they are. It's essentially a trial by mob that happened. But no, there's absolutely nothing in the rules against organizing a reform movement, which is essentially what I was trying to do.
Now, you were there from the beginning, and you and I don't know if you remember, we talked several years ago, and it appeared to be diverging from its original intent to be fair and balanced, to use a phrase. Long ago, has it gone even further since the time we talked several years ago? Is it continuing on that direction, and is it specifically going towards the left?
Yes, I would put it more generally toward whatever the establishment view is. So there is a fairly narrow Overton window, that is observed by establishment outlets. So an outlet like the Wall Street Journal is one of the few that is called conservative that is permitted by Wikipedia to be used in Wikipedia articles. But generally speaking, the neutrality is, or lack thereof, is governed by their choice of sources. So if you are not allowed to use conservative sources like Fox political reporting, then you are not going to represent conservative views.
But let me stop the co-founder of Wikipedia right here and explain what he's talking about. So, for example, let's say that somebody like a Breitbart, which, again, is a well-established news outlet. Yes, they are a conservative news outlet, but they're not a fly-by-night operation. They have been in existence for quite some time. They are a prominent media outlet on the political right. If you were to go to the Wikipedia article about Barack Obama or some other Democrat, and Breitbart had published a report exposing something about that individual, and you logged into Wikipedia or made an anonymous edit and said, on July the 10th, 2026, an article from Breitbart showed a tie between Barack Obama and this, that, or the other, and use Breitbart as your source of information to make said change, the way in which Wikipedia is supposed to, at least as I've always understood it, to handle what is true or not is sources of different articles. But as you're hearing here from Larry Sanger, who the co-founder of Wikipedia, they have limited so heavily what quote unquote sources they trust, what sources they deem as accurate and honest. It can only sway towards the political left. If you made that change and cited a Breitbart article, the administrators on the website would say that's not a valid source of information, so we're going to delete your change. We're going to delete your edit on the platform. Even if the information is wholly accurate, again, going back to the Hunter Biden laptop story, published by the New York Post, verified years later by everybody in the media landscape. It was not a fictitious report. It was not a fake report. But because it didn't paint the soon-to-be Biden administration in a good light, it was essentially erased from the vast majority of the internet. And that's the dirty little secret that's going on here at Wikipedia. More from Larry Sanger on Fox Business this week.
But it isn't just left versus right American stuff. I hear a lot of complaints from Israelis and from Hindus and others, actually. The local news all around the world is simply not allowed on Wikipedia in many cases. A lot of primary sources are not allowed. So it's a real problem, I think.
And of course, it's a problem not just with Wikipedia, but we see the same sort of thing, this algorithm of sources coming from Google. But you do have X, which has changed the whole game, has it not, very quickly?
Yes, I think so. I think that by allowing ordinary people to have their views promoted and to, support blogs and so forth, we have a little bit of the taste of the original internet.
Yeah, a little bit of taste there of the original internet. That was the voice of Larry Sanger, one of the Wikipedia co-founders, on Fox Business this week, talking about and kind of rehashing some of the details in his Washington Examiner op-ed, which, for example, a website like the Washington Examiner would not be allowed as a source for a change to a Wikipedia article. And that's the issue that has manifested itself in more recent years. If you block, and you just heard it from Larry Sanger, you block primary sources, which for those that are in the media realm, those that are in the academic realm, you are always trying to find a primary source. We all remember this going through high school and college. When you're writing a paper, you got to find the primary source of the information. It's all about the primary source. So you've got conservative news outlets that are primary sources on, for example, political scandals. They are the primary source. But because those media outlets are not ones that the moderators, that the admins of Wikipedia like, because, of course, they are tried and true leftists, because they don't like those sources, they don't like what is written on those websites, they say, we're not going to approve your change. We don't agree with your change here. This is not a source of information that we deem to be quote unquote accurate. And so you can see the snowball effect that gets created with something like this. I don't think we truly appreciate and understand what Elon Musk and X has done. I will stand on this mountaintop as long as I need to. Elon Musk fundamentally changed the internet with his purchase of Twitter and the unshackling of that platform, allowing individuals to post content, allowing individuals to speak their mind, to give their opinion on issues. That was not allowed prior to his purchase of that platform. You had to be very careful with what you were saying and how you were saying it, or you risked losing your account. You risked getting banned off of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of these other platforms. We owe a great debt of gratitude to Elon Musk and the folks over at X that have brought back some level of neutrality on a major internet platform. We owe a lot of debt to Elon Musk. Is he the perfect individual? No, I'm not saying that. Is Twitter the most perfect thing? Are there issues over at X? Absolutely. It is so fundamentally different from what it was just a couple of years ago. Completely game-changing. So, interesting stuff there. I'll throw a link to the article up in the show notes over at patreon.com/Nick Craig. Quick programming note, I am in for Brett Winterbull this afternoon on WBT Radio in Charlotte. Got a busy show coming up. We'll talk to State Treasurer Brad Briner, State Auditor Dave Bolick, U.S. Senate candidate Michael Whatley will join the program, plus your phone calls and text messages as well. 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern today on this Friday, Charlotte's FM News Talk 107.9 FM WBT. I will also be in for him on Monday and Tuesday. Depending on how busy this news weekend is, the Nick Craig Show may or may not be live Monday and Tuesday. It's just going to depend on what sort of news is going on over the weekend with everything. So if I'm not here on the Monday morning or Tuesday morning show, that is the reason why, because I'm doing that fill-in gig in the afternoon. If there's big stuff over the weekend, compelling stuff, I'll be here Monday morning. So just quick programming note on that. All right, that's going to do it for a Friday edition. Thanks to the Law Group here in Wilmington for their continued support. Visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. The Nick Craig Show streams live weekday mornings, 7 a.m., YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. It's also available 24/7 in your favorite podcast app, and is heard weeknights, 9 to 10 p.m. on WBT Radio in Charlotte. Enjoy another scorcher of a weekend here across southeastern North Carolina. We'll do it again next week right here on The Nick Craig Show.